I translate more into English from Urdu, Hindi, Telugu. I write in the three, four languages: English, Hindi, Urdu, Telugu, and Malayalam, my mother tongue. Out of my 14 books, I think 6 are translations of different poets. Basically, I do poetry. So I have a small write up on the role of translation in literature. Translation builds bridges across languages and countries. Starting from fairy tales to philosophical books, translation has made them universal. Stories for children like Aesop's fables, Panchatantra, Grimm's fairy tales, Arabian Nights are now a common treasure across the world, though written originally in different languages. Rabindranath Tagore, who wrote in Bengali, Shakespeare in English, Tolstoy in Russian, Karl Marx in German, Omar Khayyam in Persian, Premchand in Urdu and Hindi, would have been unknown to readers other than their own language if their works were not translated. Religious books like the Bible in Hebrew, the Quran in Arabic, Bhagavad Gita in Sanskrit have been translated to most languages. Literature is a mirror of society. Novels, stories, poetry of a language reflect the life of those who live in the land where it is spoken. India is a country which has a large number of languages with Sanskrit roots. The North Indian languages like Hindi, Urdu, Punjabi, Marathi, Gujarati have many features in common. Similarly, Malayalam, Tamil, Telugu, Kannada in the south are closer to each other than with other Indian languages. The vocabulary of languages vary according to the region, the family, the age of the language, the social and political influences, the geographic conditions and cultural traditional milieu. It will not be possible to get meanings of some words of one language in another even if they are in the same family. Every language has a cultural, historical and mythical background which give rise to many sayings, metaphors and symbolisms. It is necessary to understand these factors while translating literature, especially poetry. The geographical environment also plays a part in literature. Water may mean life to a person in the desert, but it embodies destruction in a flood prone land. Religious rituals, local customs, significance of festivals, mourning, or days of fasting need to be understood while translating from one language to another, as each has a plethora of symbolism attached to it. Translated prose, whether article, fiction, or short story, can to a great extent retain most of the original meaning if the translator is well versed in both the source language and the target language. But how far can translation go in bringing out the beauty of the original poetry? Prose poetry or free verse also is easier to translate than metered verse, which has a rhyme and rhythm of its own. How can the folk songs of, say, the fisher folk of Malayalam sound the same in Assamese or worse still in English? The themes of the sea and fishing may be alien to a person coming from the hilly lands, but it helps them to understand the joys and sorrows of the fisher folk far away when told in their language. Translation of poetry has many more layers than that of prose. It is said that poetry is what is lost in translation. One has to put oneself in the shoes of the original poet and try to recreate the ambience of the poem. It becomes more of transcreation than that of translation. In prose poetry or free verse, this not much of a hurdle, as only the meaning of the original has to be conveyed in a poetic manner. But where the poetry is in a predetermined structure, this poses an impediment. It is well nigh impossible to translate metered poetry into another language, especially as far removed in syntax and structure as, say, Urdu and English. The translation of a genre like ghazal from Urdu to English does not give the reader the rhyme and the rhythm of the original, but only its gist in a sort of free verse. Similarly, translation of sonnets in English or to Telugu or Urdu will lose their original form but retain the contents. Literature reflects the life of people, their religion, culture, and social values. Language has got many words with religious symbolism. Hinduism has words like Om, Havan, Arti, caste, untouchability, puja, Ganga Jal, and Kashi. Islam has words like Mecca, Hajj, Umrah, Namaz, Roza, Abe Zamzam, etc. Christianity has terms like the cross, Messiah, nativity, Lent, etc. These terms are easily identified by readers who are of that faith or familiar with it, but an enigma to others. Traditions of a community are linked to its language. The attire, festivals, myths, music and dances, customs, dialects, and even swear words have their own individual flavor, and translation cannot get to the impact of the original. The collective emotional consciousness of a language is an important factor in translation. Urdu is a very flowery language, and its poetry is laced with hyperboles, where English is comparatively sedate. As such, the literal translation of Urdu may sometimes sound far-fetched or even preposterous in English. You must be familiar with this Mirza Ghalib's ghazal, कि दिले नादा तुझे हुआ क्या है, आखिर इस दर्द की दवा क्या है. I mean, our Urdu poets are very fond of talking to their heart, but English poets don't talk that much. Anyway, the free translation would be something like this: "Oh, my naive heart, what has befallen you? After all, what is a remedy for this pain?" But we have lost the lyrical meter, its kafiya and radif, that is the rhyme and refrain. Every language has a different flavor, a different level of emotion, a different level of mixing reality with imagination and poetry. If we compare the Urdu, it is rich in evocative metaphors. These are figurative and have meanings depending on the context. A poem waxing eloquent about the beauty of snowfall would not create the same feeling in a reader of another language who has no idea as to how it looks. The greenery of a land like Kerala cannot be understood by a person who has lived his whole life in a concrete jungle. Translation may not have the effect of the original, but it can take the readers to an unseen land. In English, everyone is addressed as you. But in many Indian languages, there are three forms of addressing another person. One is respectful, another is used for peers, and third for either younger ones, intimate, or the almighty. ये शेर देखिए कि रंज की जब गुफ्तगू होने लगी आप से तुमसे तू होने लगी. How would you translate the second line? Like from you to you to you. There's no आप तुम, and it's something very cultural. How can we translate this line? There are many aspects that have to be kept in mind when translating from the original to the source language. Possibly the full flavor of the original may not be felt in the new version. However, these bridges of translation take readers from their own places to other countries, cultures, and times. When we read a poem or a story from another language through translated works, we realize that human beings are basically the same throughout the world, mentally, physically, and emotionally. This also is a major step towards world peace, bringing people of the world closer to each other. Actually, there's a felt need. We all are translators. I think you would be also feeling the same, that there's a felt need to give more importance and encouragement for translation of literature. It is only when works of a particular language are translated to another does its culture and literature reach the outside world. Though the different language academies, we have so many academies, Urdu, Telugu, and all this. In India, they give aid and awards to books translated into that language. It does not do so in case of those translated from that language to other languages. Thus, it does not showcase its literary treasures to the world. It encourages import but not export. If there is a forum for translators, this, I think, needs to be brought to the attention of those concerned. I think that's enough for my talk. There are so many people who will give you much more information. Thank you so much for your patient hearing. Thank you, sirs.
मोना एलिज़ाबेथ मैडम को आप सुन रहे थे. आपका पेन नेम है मोना. मैडम आरबीआई में काम करते थे पहले, और आप मलयालम बैकग्राउंड से हैं, बल्कि आपकी इब्तदाई अफजाइश वहीं से रही. आज उर्दू के बेहतरीन शायर हैं, गज़ल ख़ां हैं, और तक़रीबन 15 से ज़ायद किताबों के मुसन्निफ़ा हैं. रीख्ता पर आपके मशहूर मुशायरे यूट्यूब पर दस्तयाब हैं, आप उनको सुन सकते हैं। आप आए फ़िज़ा मुस्कुराने लगी, आप आए फ़िज़ा मुस्कुराने लगी, ज़िंदगी ज़ेर लब गुनगुनाने लगी। ताहम मैडम ने जो कही वो एक अहम बात थी कि अशार का तर्जुमा, बिलखुसूस जो पोइट्री है उसका तर्जुमा काफ़ी मुश्किल तरीन अम्र है। गालिब का ये शेर है, बाजी चाहे अतफ़ाल है दुनिया मेरे आगे, होता है शब व रोज़ तमाशा मेरे आगे, एक खेल है औरंग सुलेमा मेरे नज़दीक, एक बात है एजाज़ मसीहा मेरे आगे। इस तरीक़े के ट्रांसलेशंस या इस तरीक़े की शायरी का तर्जुमा तकरीबन अदम के बराबर है, या अगर इसका तर्जुमा किया भी जाए तो इसके जो लिरिक्स हैं या इसकी जो लय है या इसकी जो पीच है उस तक पहुंचना शायद ही तर्जुमे के बस की बात हो। ताहम तर्जुमा एक हसास तरीन अम्र है, उसके बावजूद भी उसमें कोशिश की जा सकती है।